Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dream Nation podcast. I'm your host, Yulia. Today, I'm super excited to interview bassist Catherine Popper. She's also a singer and a songwriter, and you probably know her for her work with Ryan Adams and the Cardinals. Yes, that Ryan Adams. And she also played with Grace Potter and the Nocturnals, Jack White, and Billie Joel Armstrong of Green Day. She's a total badass, and she's also a member of the all-female trio called Puss with Norah Jones and Sasha Dobson. Because this show is about diversity, so I really try to cover a different range of topics. And I love music, so you're going to hear a lot of musicians on the show, because I think that starting a band and launching a startup are two very, very similar ideas, right? You need to find the right members, you need to make sure the band stays together, you need to keep on putting out hits. And this podcast is brought to you by Did Nails out of Brooklyn by Adrienne Blanks, and she creates these amazing nail polishes that are non-toxic. They're free of any chemicals that I can't pronounce, and they are cruelty-free, so please check them out at getyournailsdid.com. It's a really great woman-run company, and I encourage all women to stop using gel colors and all the other just toxic nail polishes that women put on their bodies without even thinking twice about it. So check out getyournailsdid.com because it doesn't have any harmful chemicals in it, and it's made by a woman, which is totally amazing. And I also want to give a shout out to wonderful silk pillowcases called the Silk Game, which are created by two women. So sleeping on silk is good for your skin, and it keeps your hair shiny and unbroken. And what I really love is that they have really funny taglines on them, like I'm woman, hear me snore. They have emoji couple sets with an eggplant and a little peach on it. They're super cute on your bed and even cuter on your Instagram. So check them out at silkgame.myshopify.com or look up silk_game on Insta and use the discount code DREAMNATION, no spaces, for $10 off your order. That's silkgame.myshopify.com or look up silk_game on Insta and use the discount code DREAMNATION. So get yourself some silk pillowcases and enjoy the podcast. I'm really excited to have Catherine Popper on the show. She's a rock star. You also call yourself the sideman, I believe?
Yes, that's sort of more what I usually tend towards than a rock star. Well, I sort of consider myself, as a general rule, like a permanent private in the Army, and am actually like, which is not always true because I have been in projects now where I've sang and, had my own songs. I actually really like being hired by other people and in other people's projects. I really enjoy supporting other people. I think they say a lot of times, like, style is dictated by limitation. And I think that, I always did have a little bit of a trepidation about stepping out into the limelight. And I think as a result, I end up being a very nurturing person in a lot of projects, which people would probably laugh if they heard me say that, the people that I work with. But yeah,
that makes sense, right? Because at the end, you are responsible for bringing the vision to life.
Exactly. Well, and or not, or I'm responsible for like stepping back on stage and letting the artists do their thing, but then like, when it's time on the bus and they're having like a freak out about what to wear, or if they need somebody to talk to, or, if they need levity, there's some smaller projects I play with where people are like, they're not so good with their banter, and I can help on stage with the banter. Like, sometimes it's not about, shining on stage. It's about what you can do for how you can be of service to the band in all kinds of other ways.
I love that. It's kind of like a meaning for life, too, which brings me to my next question, which is, what was your dream as a kid?
I wanted to be a park ranger.
I love it.
I wanted to work with animals. It's all I never really had goals and dreams. I wasn't really, I started playing music very young, and it was always something I did. But, when I went to conservatories, but I'm not sure I ever really expected to have a career in music. And so it's not like I was like, I'm going to get this, I'm going after this. It just sort of, I worked very hard at it, but, I worked part-time jobs, and I think like, I used to go temp. I used to work at the World Trade Center, and I would go, take my upright bass, work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and I'd put the bass in the corner and go play a show after, which I can't believe I did that now. But it was just what I did, I didn't have any expectations.
I think that's what a lot of women have to do too, and that has to do with funding, because a lot of women, it's really hard for us to live our dream. And that's very similar to my tech projects too, because I usually have a day job in advertising. I'm a creative director, and then I work on my other projects at night, because as a woman, it's really hard to get funded full-time for whatever you're doing.
But I think it's also hard for anybody to be like, it's, you didn't ask this, but when I started, I was a jazz musician and I was not hireable. And I had people who would hire me, but there was a lot of people who would, say they were really weirded out about hiring a woman. But then all of a sudden in the 90s, because I played a lot of kinds of music. Like I was always very into like traditional musics and rock and roll and punk rock and classical and jazz and contemporary classical, like a lot of really niche things. And all of a sudden in the 90s, it was like, oh, we need to get a woman bass player like Kim Gordon. And that didn't serve me either, because you know what? I'm not Kim Gordon. I'm somebody who can like write big band charts. I have a lot of music skills that I'm not just a woman playing bass. So I feel like, it's hard for anybody to make a living, but like it was, I think what the woman part that was complicated was navigating being either unhireable or eminently hireable based on the fact that I had boobs.
Right, because the people who seek you out just because you're a woman puts you in a totally different, weird situation as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just as uncomfortable because it's like I feel like I'm completely overlooked for all of the hard work. I went to conservatory for high school and for college. And, not that makes me better than other musicians, but it definitely gets my spidey senses tingling that it's like we were looking for a woman. It's like, well, there's a lot of women. I'm a bass player,
Yes.
And it doesn't mean I won't take an all-woman gig, but I need to make sure that everybody is there for the same reason that I am.
So how did you get into playing the bass? How did you pick that up as an instrument?
I think I was playing violin for a year, and in 5th grade I had been playing piano, and I had a big thing for the Police and for Sting, and I saw him playing upright. But my mom says that I saw a woman playing upright bass in the orchestra somewhere, and I went to the orchestra teacher and I said, I want to play that. And she said, no, women played the cello. And I was like, I don't know why I was such a stubborn little asshole, but I said, no, I don't want to play the cello. I want to play that. I have no idea what got into my head, but so yeah, I started playing upright bass in 6th grade.
So who were your musical heroes when you first started out?
When I was in 6th grade?
Even now, like across, because it changes all the time.
Yeah, I mean, in 6th grade, it's the same ones. Like, I loved the Police. I loved Men at Work. You know what I mean? Like, I loved the music that was on the radio, and I still think Men at Work is like one of the most underrated bands. They're just amazing, and Colin Hay, the singer, his voice. It's like, I think now there's a lot of musicians who inspire me for different reasons, like bass players. Ray Brown has always been my he's a jazz bass player. He's always been sort of my hero in terms of tone and time and just presence, and but I loved Mike Watt, huge hero. Other bass players, I'm trying to think. Like, I've spent a lot of time with James Jamerson's bass lines. I think he's sort of my electric bass hero, and as an extension, like Paul McCartney and Jerry Jamot. But in terms of, I have like songwriting heroes, and musical, like The Damned is one of my favorite bands. It always has been. And I just think people always talk about like guilty pleasures, and I just I don't even know what that means, especially growing up and going to conservatories and like sneaking out to punk rock shows and stuff. There was always this weird thing of like, I actually got sat down by the head of the school at my conservatory. He's like, we heard a rumor that you're going to these bluegrass jam sessions, and we want to know how that helps your jazz. Like I got pulled aside, I mean, I'm 44. I was always like a genre junkie. And, it was at a time when if you wanted to go buy, you couldn't pull that up on the Spotify. Like, you had to go to 5 different record stores.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for diversity and not just sticking to one thing. So many influences come from so many different places. So, you can listen to bluegrass and you can listen to heavy metal.
I think the more serious the music is that you play, the bigger, nobody, like a rock and roll musician, if he's going to the opera, people would be like, whoa, that's cool. But like if a classical musician, breaks their nose in a pit at a punk rock show. It's eyebrow raising, and I definitely found that to be true over the years, which I thought was so weird because Louis Armstrong made me feel the same way that like Agnostic Front did. It brought the same feeling to my solar plexus.
I loved hanging out at hardcore shows as a kid. I remember being in a Agnostic Front show when I was like 16 years old, and we were jumping around, and my friend lost his keys. And we ended up going up to the singer, Rabies. Was it Rabies? I think it was Rabies.
Did you tell him to stop the show?
And we were like, we know it's the end of the show, but we lost our car keys. And Rabies got up on stage. This was like before he died. And he was like, can everybody just take a moment to look around and look for keys? So we had the whole entire mosh pit looking for car keys, and somebody found them.
That is so cool. I love that shit.
And that's like a sense of community, and that's what the music world has. And then I have all these weird, funny stories. I can talk about this forever, but my question to you is, what advice do you have for musicians who want to break into the music world?
It's always such a hard question because, again, I moved to New York in 1992. And I went to this conservatory, and I basically just temped, and then I would take gigs, right? And I started out like, I can sort of base every gig that I've ever had on this one tiny gig that I played twice a week at this jazz club called Augie's. For tips, I played there for an hour and a half on Tuesdays and Thursdays or something. Sunday, I don't know, whatever it was. But like, it wasn't a fancy gig at all. But then like, I started to meet other people. So it was there's a germ of community that starts and like regularity, and then you meet more people. And then, all of a sudden, like I'm working with all these different people. But I think it's funny, when people ask me this question, I say it's hard because I feel like the best answer is don't have any expectation of actually managing to do it. I don't know. Like, when people call me, they're like, I've just moved to New York. What do I do? And I'll say, go hang out at these watering holes, because this is where all the sidemen go when they're in town and they're on their, and they're playing or they're on their day off hanging out. Like, this is a great place to meet people, but it's just a different time. Like, I could work at Merrill Lynch, right? I could temp and make $23 an hour, $24 an hour, and I barely knew how to turn the fucking computer on. Like, you can have a finance degree and not be able to get that job now. So I just don't know. And I'm sure there are ways, but like, this is, we're talking like coming up on 30 years ago. So I feel like also it's so amazing that young people are encouraged, like all these at a really young age, to be creative and write music, and play. I work with these young women or young kids who are like 11 and just killing it on their instruments. And I think sometimes what happens is when you're a big fish in a small pond, you come out of there with this sort of sense of entitlement, like, okay, I'm good at this, I'm going to be a musician. And it's a little bit dangerous. So I feel like as long as you can temper your expectation and not hinge your happiness on certain things, then that's sort of the best answer I can give you.
I think you have to enjoy the moment too. Try to do the work and hope for the best, and enjoy doing the work.
Yeah, like I've had these crazy lulls in my life where I would quit a band because I quit this amazing band that I played with, Grace Potter and the Nocturnals, and I loved them, but they never got off the road, and my body just gave. I was exhausted. So I left that band and I thought, well, shit, I'm never going to work again. And I got a part-time job for a little while, and then I don't remember what happened next. Like, I ended up getting a lot of work that year, but it was like, well, I guess this is what I do now. So, there are a lot of musicians who go from tour to tour, or they get in a band and they never leave. That's not been my path. Like, I've had a very slow year because I don't want to tour as much, and I don't feel good on the road. I'm over it. I don't drink, like I eat healthy, and I can't sleep on the bus. And so I've been doing like smaller projects and some really interesting ones, but I just took a seat in a Broadway show that's coming up. I really like the idea of waking up in my own bed and, having a little bit of stability and with other great musicians.
Women, physiologically, we are different. So when we go on the road, we need a few other things. It's like going to Burning Man as a woman, right? You're like, okay, well, I have to make sure my period is not that week because I don't want to be in the desert PMSing. I hate saying it, but it's a little easier for guys because they don't have to deal with just body stuff.
Well, and also, I'm a diabetic and an asthmatic, right? So it's like I have issues if people are smoking on, the bus, or like I have a lot of food issues, and if I'm not sleeping enough, like all that stuff gets out of whack, and then I get sick. And when I get sick, I go to the hospital. Like I have like chronic health issues, and touring are just a bad combination. And I think I did it for a long time because I was like, well, this is what I do. And then all of a sudden I realized my insides do not match my outsides anymore. This is not working for me. And I feel like for several years I've been floundering, because I'll go on the road for short periods of time, but even then, like, I come back and I'm just a mess. So I feel like, yeah, as a woman, there's a lot of definitely that. And, but also as a person with health issues, like it's just some people can do it. And some people enjoy waking up in a different place every day, and they have the energy to go out. It's like, I go to places sometimes in all like these amazing cities, and all I see is the venue.
It's really hard because you're going from gig to gig, you're traveling, you're not getting a lot of sleep. It also takes a lot of energy to perform. It's hard. You're not eating your food, and it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and it's also, I need to save up. Yeah, I need to save up my energy for stage, and, also like, you get there and you sleep in a little bit because you haven't slept all night. But, there's also there's a lot of noise on the bus. And, so say you wake up, say you manage to sleep till 10 a.m., which would be a miracle for me. You get up, you have coffee, you got to find somewhere to poop because you can't poop on the bus. You might have a little bit of the day, but in general, you have to be at sound check in a few hours. And then you got to make sure you get dinner in you and in the show. And then a lot of times the bus will pull away that night. So it's like, and also the bigger the tour, the bigger the venue. So you're in this bus, and this bus is the spaceship that pulls into this other spaceship, right? This huge venue. And if it's usually a big venue's in the middle of nowhere. So it's a $40 cab ride to get anywhere you'd want to go. And you only have a minute, because also I didn't mention you have to find a way to take a shower, which some people don't do, but like I need to wash. You get into the bed with like the sweat from the gig on you. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't mean to complain. It's like first world problems, but still, it's just like waking up in your own bed and taking a shower, and I've got all my vitamins out. Like, it's so nice.
It's about taking care of yourself. And I think, it would be so cool if we just kind of almost reinvented the world that made it easier for people who are traveling.
Part of the problem in the music industry is when people stopped buying records, the market became totally oversaturated with touring bands, because that's the only way to make money now. So these bands are playing, all these bands are just pounding these same venues, these same circuits, and nobody's really all that concerned. There's tons of venues and places that make it so lovely and comfortable, but in general, it's like, everybody knows that we're a captive audience, because there's not really any other way to do it anymore. I've had the luck, I've done a lot of recording this year, with different projects, and also I work with these guys who do movie stuff. Just did a bunch of soundtrack for the new Scorsese movie that's coming out, all the music for some of their HBO shows. So I've been really lucky. But in terms of touring, it's in a holding pattern. So I think, the lifestyle on the road, it's amazing. It's getting healthier. Like, I'm sober, and now that's not weird. It doesn't mean you're some kind of Jesus freak. It's like, oh, she's sober, like, hey, there's lettuce in the fridge because there's a sober person on the bus. Somebody's doing yoga in the front. Kat has asthma, so we're not going to smoke pot on the bus. Like, it's sort of, people bring like electric toothbrushes on the road. I've just seen it change, so.
It's enlightenment, right? In a weird way, everybody is kind of like just becoming a little bit more enlightened. Which brings me to my next question, which is, how do you create harmony in a band? This question is very important to startups, because when you're put together a startup, it's kind of like putting together a band, and you're casting all the players, and you want everybody to be really good at their instrument.
Unlimited Wi-Fi. No, I mean, I do remember before there was Wi-Fi on buses, and you had to sort of talk to each other all the time. And I think it's really important on the bus to, like, everybody sort of takes their space, just in general. And that was sort of a joke. But in the project, I feel like, knowing, and I think this comes with growing up, is like knowing when to, how can I put this? Just sort of knowing your place, and knowing when to be bigger and when to be smaller, especially when you're working for an artist. some people in the band need more space because they're very reactionary or very, like there's always a person in the band that you're going to have a hard time getting along with, or a harder time than others. And I think, like, it's really important, unlike any job, dealing with difficult people, it's really important to just examine, okay, what is my part in this situation? Like, even if this person is an incorrigible asshole, which I've been in bands with those people, it's like, where is my part? What am I doing? Am I continuing to, like, trust my emotions with this person? Am I antagonizing this person, without even realizing it? Or, can I be kind to this person and trust that I have what I need, and just, like, give them a there and move on my way? Can I have a sense of humor about it? Like, I feel, and sometimes there's going to be days, like, it's important to remember that everybody's going to get into an argument, like, everybody's going to get angry, and then, to remember not to take things personally, not meaning like, I'm just going to get over it, but it's like, have another pal you can talk to about it. Maybe not in the band, but like, this is just the thing that happened today, and then, just getting support around, because like a job, it's like a family that you choose. I spent a lot of time being in bands and getting really worked up about somebody who was so difficult to get along with, and I would get so obsessed about, why don't they like me? Why aren't they responding to me the way I want? And I had to do a lot of work on myself to realize, what is it about me that can't accept them the way they are? And then at a certain point, you draw boundaries if they're like getting in your situation or being antagonizing. But I feel like it's just growing up stuff, really.
It's so true. It's about it's about not taking things personal too.
And I think a lot of people, they numb out with drugs and alcohol, and they don't feel things as acutely, which is great. Like, God bless them, and I wish that I could experience that. I don't work well with drugs and alcohol, but so it's almost like, you're going to have a flare up, and the next day you're kind of hungover, or you're like, oh yeah, that happens when I drink. But, when you're having a sort of feeling that you can't nudge away with drugs and alcohol or whatever, and it's just sort of building in you, then you have to take it and work with it. And yeah.
So I have 2 more questions, and we're
Sure.
going to wrap up. So my next question is, what's the biggest difference between working with an all-female band or with women and men?
It's just so weird. Like, all the projects that I work with that are all women, we're generally pretty, like, leery of the fact that we've all been hired as women. And it's not because we don't want to play with other women, but it's because, again, it can diminish our capabilities as musicians to be thrown into the women ghetto. And it's frustrating sometimes. So I think literally the only difference is, what goes on around us. Because we're just playing, we're just trying to work. So it's like, the difference is like, well, we all know we're here because we got hired as women, and we're going to do our jobs. And, we're not like mad about it, but it's like, okay, we all know what's going on here. So anything that's going to be different is going to be, from the top.
So my next question is, what is your dream as an adult?
Well, I just want to live on water. I literally, you know what I mean? Like, I bought a houseboat a few years ago, and in the Rockaways, and it's been mostly a financial nightmare, and it hasn't been in the water for 2 years. We've been working on it for 2 years straight, but that's all I really care about, is I want to live on the water. I want to live somewhere where the water's clear, and I want to have a lot of animals. Literally my dream.
That's amazing. I'm actually trying to work on doing an animal sanctuary in the next 5 years. I want to do a little tiny goat farm sanctuary and have it as a retreat for people and animals, and bring together musicians and creatives for talks. So it's a place where you can do goat yoga, but you can also just come and learn a lot of stuff, and bringing creatives and burnt out corporate type into a place where you put away your phone and you listen to a lot of lectures and you learn about new things and you connect to nature and each other. I'm vegan, so I love animals. I'm obsessed with animals.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Because it really is true. I know I personally find it hard to put my phone down unless I'm around animals. And there's so many animals that need help from us. And I think that's the dream. But I don't think it's hard for me to imagine. I think also because of my health issues, my dreams are a little bit tempered with reality about what I can accomplish. So, when people are like, I want to write a record that's blah, blah, blah. It's like, I enjoy writing music, I enjoy playing music. But I feel like I'm in a transition period of, I don't have this passion-driven thing that's making me need to be something bigger. It's almost like I'm the opposite. I'm like diving inside, Well, I think it's hard, but it's when you don't have a particular goal or dream, there's not really much to talk about. So I don't really believe in goals. I sort of think that they're a little bit, for me, they take me out of the moment. It's hard for me to be like, I'm aiming my compass in the direction of this every single day, because it's not how my life works with my body and my job. So it's like, I'm just sort of, so it's not like I can even say, like, I have this particular thing. So it's, I keep it in the day. I write these gratitude lists, and I write about things that have happened in the day and fears that I had that didn't come true. And I think that's more like a goal, is just trying to keep it more in the day, which sort of goes against the goal thing. So I'm still haven't worked that out. Maybe when I'm 50, I'll get that.
No, I love it. That's a goal. That's beautiful. I love this quote. I saw it on your Instagram page, and it said, "Be this thing that you want to be in the world." And I love it, and I want to use it on my Instagram page. I'm just going to mock it up and attribute it to you and tag you in it. And but yeah, like, I just want to, like, you work with so many great musicians. You work with Ryan Adams, you work with Jack White, and you just played a show with Billie Joel Armstrong too, who's like,
yeah,
I love him. I love Green Day. Like, my whole life was like Green Day growing up as a kid. It was like the Puss and Green Day, the Specials, and all that stuff. So you have a chance to be all around these amazing, talented people, because you yourself are super talented. And I wanted to ask you what that quote means to you, like, be this thing that you want to be in the world.
You know what? I really love the internet, and I'm addicted to the internet, and I love stupid pictures. And I have this thing that I do for my friends where I'll take a picture that I find, and I'll find a quote. I'll just find sort of an obscure quote and put them together. It's sort of just like a thing that I do. I waste a lot of time doing it, and I think that was just one of those that I tossed off. I don't remember exactly what it was that I put it under, but I've always loved, like, Sting. I've actually never met him. He's one of the few people that I've never worked with or met, that him and Stuart Copeland. But
I met Sting at his 60th birthday party. I was like trying not to like have my brain explode. He's such an idol for me, because he's like a really awesome rock star.
He was such a great bass player, such an unusual bass player at the time too, like the way he played, and that he could play those, reggae bass lines and sing, and he was just really hot too. But it's funny because just being a certain age, like it's not cool to like the Police. A lot of people, it's kind of corny to some people, which is really funny to me, because I will never set this torch down. But I think the reunion sort of rekindled some of the interest. But no, I just think he's a singular musician. I was walking down the street in my neighborhood, and there was this group of teenagers on the corner, and I was like, here we go, I'm gonna get hassled, right? And I had on a Police shirt, and this kid goes, yo, and I was like, what's up? And he goes, is that Sting? And I said, yeah. He goes, yo, he is fucking awesome. He is a fucking great bass player. And all the guys on the stoop were just kind of like going on about it was so cute. All these 16-year-old kids, I thought that was really funny. So
yeah, I think that this generation gets it. They're pretty cool. They get it. Awesome. Well, I'm so grateful to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, by the way. You seem to have such a lovely vibe, and I'm looking forward to listening to some more of your podcast, which I haven't had a chance to do yet.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for tuning into the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Please share it on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Dream Nation Love. It's not Dream Nation Podcast, it's Dream Nation Love, because I think my single mission in life is to teach people how to love a little bit more, and together we can save the world. So it's Dream Nation Love. Share it with your friends. Have a great day, and go out and make the world a better place.